I don't want to be dystopian when we talk about AI. Because I believe that there are two sides of every coin, and I believe in the law of polarity. A lot of people are going to focus on the storm that it will create. And I talked about that at the Masterclass, that there is a storm coming, but every storm has an opportunity. And not every storm is seen as something dark for every person. It really depends on where you are. And for me, the idea of this storm coming is I want to be the person selling umbrellas. If you get my point, where everybody needs what I have. And so the fact that it's raining doesn't change anything for me. The fact that it's raining, the fact that it's storming actually is a benefit to me and my family. And I want it to be the same for you all too. But they're going to be two different kinds of people. And it's going to be the one being rained on, and it's going to be the one that's handing out umbrellas or selling umbrellas. Which will you be?
If you want to be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live your dream. Your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals.
Here's the other thing that I know. If you're like me after leaving these type of events, one of the things that I do is I typically will go through my notes and organize myself, right? And like, here are the top things, here are the things I want to remember. And then that will bring up questions. And so if you have a question or something that was a big takeaway for you, then by all means, I want to know about that as well. And so give me a phone call, 773-591-1690. And it was good to see a lot of you over the years that I've had the opportunity to talk to on the phone. Some of you who have been to events in the past, again, this is my first event since 2019, because after the pandemic, it just went virtual. And so it was really good to be back in everyone's presence, and so excited about that. Here's the other piece too. By the way, the live event was getting traffic. I mean, so when it was getting traffic, but then the recording. So afterwards, the recording was still up, and I'm not mad at all. The virtual folks were passing that link around, and it was getting traffic last night. I was looking. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. This is awesome. It was altogether about a 3.5 hour event without editing. And so, of course, we'll edit it down and make it available. And as of now, that link is currently not available because I did download it so that way we can do our work. So if you're looking for it, that's what's going on. If you were at the Masterclass and you're like, man, I watched half of it last night again, and, that's what's going on. And so we'll make it available soon. But really, really good time. So if you were there, give me a phone call. Let me know how you feel, what you took away from it, what were your top takeaways. And if you have a question, give me a phone call.
I did hear you say something about a mental diet, and I would like to hear you speak a little more about that this morning.
Okay.
And you have already answered my other question, the availability of being able to watch the entire presentation.
Yeah, we'll make it available. We'll make it available.
Yes, sir. One last thing, brother. The pandemic served you well. I haven't seen you in 3 or 4 years, but you're looking good, dude.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think you will make it into your 60s playing basketball.
All right, that's the plan. That is the plan. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you heard that part.
Beautiful being you also.
Likewise. Good seeing you again. Very good seeing you again.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Ide, you had the opportunity to be there and support, as you always do. So thanks for that, man. Want to acknowledge your work. I was looking at it last night. I said, okay, man, brother came through as always. And as with anything that you do, there's going to be resistance. It's not going to go perfectly. And I think because you were part of the team, you probably saw some of the areas where it didn't go perfectly. And if we were going for perfect, we wouldn't have been there. I mean, there's no, you can't do it perfectly. The idea is that you meet the mark, that we achieve the intended outcome. And I believe we did that. So thanks for your support yesterday with that. Yeah. I'm curious for you, man, and not to put you on the spot, but what would you say were some of your top takeaways? Being there, you spend a lot of time with me here on the show, et cetera. Meetings and things like that. But was there something that you heard that you felt was new for you, where you were like, okay, I need to keep this in my back pocket? Anything like that?
I mean, you like you said, I've been around you, so I think you've mentioned it before, but I don't know, it kind of hit me yesterday for some reason, kind of like being still when you spoke about that piece.
Okay.
Yeah, being still, meditation, things like that, just stop moving. Because you usually move on a daily and you're doing all these things. So just taking time for yourself.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that stuck with me from yesterday.
So that one stuck with you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, man. Like, so is that something you feel like you have an opportunity with right now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, single.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not doing this to cast any shade. I'm really for perspective.
Right.
Okay. You're single.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any children.
No.
And consider that if you don't master being still now, brother.
Yeah.
Like at least creating the space.
Right.
For yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely you want to create that space to be still and to give the audience context. Part of what we were talking about was the law of vibration and frequency. And I was sharing with the audience, and I'm going to cover a little bit more in detail because I'm sure people who weren't there are like, man, what are we talking about here? But part of what I was sharing was this notion that if we want to raise our vibration and our frequency, part of what is necessary is for us to stop and be still. And I was sharing that I believe that the most powerful part of meditation is, of course, when you're in meditation, what happens to the brain, what happens to the mind. But I was saying that I believe the most powerful part is the ability to stop, like teaching yourself to stop and spend some time with yourself. Making yourself number one for 20 minutes or so a day is one of the most powerful things that you can do. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the meditation, if you're in meditation during that period, there's added benefits to that. I think one of the major things that the listening audience, you listen to me every Sunday, you should know is I did talk about, and if you listen to 2024, the last year of now, if you listen to that show, which, by the way, is making its rounds on YouTube, because I think people get it, ultimately. They're like, all right, this is something I should pay attention to. If you heard that show, I talked about how I do believe this is a new era. Like we're stepping into a new era. And so why it's so important to go into this era clean and clear in terms of your goals. The other thing, though, that I shared is that because of how important I believe AI is going to be in the next era, that I want to be able to support the community with their learning of AI. And so what I did was I actually included in the Slayer Goals coaching membership, I included AI training in that membership now. And so as a result, if you don't join before the end of the year, then you will miss out on the opportunity to pay $37 a month from here on out, because the membership will be moving forward $70 a month. partly because I have to make sure that the time and value that I'm providing to this community is equitable to the time I'm taking away from other endeavors. And so I've already invested thousands of dollars into my AI education. I've already spent days becoming educated on AI because I see how important it is for myself and for my business, for my family. And what the plan is and what I will be doing is bringing anyone who's a member of the Slay Your Goals community. And I meant to share this, but anyone who purchases the Discover and Live Your Life's Purpose course, anyone who purchases that course that's taking place January 25th, if you purchase that course, and by the way, all this content is on my website, LynellHarris.com. You can go there and get all the links. But if you purchase that course, I will also, as a bonus, include you in the quarterly trainings for AI. So that's one of the things that I did cover. We talked a little bit. We had a lot of Q&A around AI. Well, not a lot, a few questions. One person asked in particular what my thoughts on generative AI were. And hopefully they got their question answered. And so, that's pretty much what I covered on AI. More to come. And here's the thing. I will talk about AI in general on the radio. That will not cut it when it comes to education. It will. There's no way. There's no way, because in order for me to properly train AI, you have to be looking at my screen. You have to see where I'm going. You have to see the prompts I'm putting in. You just, there's so much that is entails in terms of properly teaching it that there's no way I can do it on the radio, which is why it has to be a closed forum. And I'm making that available to my Slay Your Goals members. So if you've been putting off joining, like, this is the time. So Freddie, what would you say is your top takeaway from yesterday?
Mindset.
Mindset. Yeah, man.
And frequency.
Yeah.
And when my frequency has to be high to tap in to things that I want to accomplish. But when my vibration is high, I'm on that wavelength. So if I keep a high frequency up within the 700s, that means I'm tapping into my goals and my dreams. I'm attracting the things I'm looking for. My thought process, everything I think good is going to happen.
Nice.
You know, so it's just like, some things I've been thinking about, it started happening. I said, whoa. The thought went out to the universe, and it's happening.
There we go.
There we go. That's all I got to say.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot for the phone call, Freddie. Appreciate you, man. All right, good stuff. Art, good morning, brother. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, young man, and Happy New Year to you and your family.
Likewise. Happy New Year. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Couple of quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do the things that you do?
Why do I do the things that I do? That's a broad question. Can you narrow it for me a little bit? In particular, you're talking about the show, the Masterclass, all those things?
Yeah, encompass everything that you are doing. Are you doing it for a purpose?
Oh, 100%.
Outside of self?
I don't. If I'll tell you this, if I were being completely selfish, I probably wouldn't do most of this. If it were just about me, then I don't know that I would get up at 5 a.m. on Sundays to get down here to the studio. I don't know that I would go through the trouble of creating a masterclass, because there's a lot of moving pieces and people that need to get paid and a lot of things that have to get done to make something like that happen. So I don't, if it were about just me, then no, I wouldn't do it. The reason I do it is because I believe to the core of my being, this is what I was designed to do. That the Creator created me with the purpose of, and I shared my purpose yesterday, taking the opportunities and the blessings that He's given me to share with my community. And he put a burden on my heart in particular for my community. And at the Masterclass, I talked about why I started doing the Masterclass. And I'll share that with you real quick because of your question, Art. The reason, let's start with the book Slay Your Goals. The reason I wrote the book Slay Your Goals, and by the way, it's still free. And you might say, well, why is this brother giving this away free when other people put their books on Amazon and make money? One of the things that I know about our community, because I'm a part of it, is that we don't always have access to the right tools, to the knowledge, even to the examples of what excellence looks like, what greatness looks like. We don't have access. And in my life, it was exposure that changed everything for me. Without that exposure, in many ways, I would, probably be no different than many of the young men that you see moving around in the streets. Or if you look at my age, 48 years old, Sunday would be gearing up to watch football, and that would be my break, right? That would be my oasis if I were living my life like the average black man. And by the way, there's no shade. I'm just saying, if you don't like sports and all that, you get my point. But the reason I wrote the book was because I found that when it came to fundamental goal setting, like, we did not have the knowledge. And I began to realize that from doing the show and individuals calling in and asking me questions when I talked about simple goal setting techniques. Man, wait a second. Our community doesn't know how to set a goal. And by the way, it's just not our community. I would say almost most people in every community doesn't know how to set a goal because it's not taught. Of all the things they teach us K through 12, they don't teach you how to set a goal, which I find fascinating. And it's intentional. I believe it's intentional. And so I wrote the book in 2016 and made it free because I didn't want there to be a barrier of access, period. All you have to do, it costs you your email address so I can stay in communication with you. So that was number one. Number two is it was my wife's idea to start the Masterclass and make it free. We were on vacation one year. I think this was like 2017. It's a little bit after the book came out. And she was just kind of saying, man, we're so blessed. Now, we were sitting on the beach. I think my son might have been 1 year old playing in the sun. And, you just sit there and you reflect like, man, we're so incredibly blessed. And she was like, people don't get to live like this. And I was like, you're right. She's like, we have to do something to give back. Now, what do you think? She was like, you should host a masterclass that's free for anybody who wants to learn how to set goals. They can come in, they can ask questions. It can be a setting live where people can get exactly what they need around goal setting. And she was like, and my company's going to sponsor it, and your company's going to. That's how my wife does, too. She'll tell me what I'm going to do. Your company's going to sponsor it, too. We're not going to make people pay a thing. We're going to take care of all the costs, everything that, for location, logistics. We'll take care of all the costs, and it's our way of giving back to the community. And I said, let's make it happen. And that's how the Masterclass started. And I believe that, it aligned with my purposes, which is why it's such a quick yes. And that's why, long way to answer your question, Art, but that's why I do it.
You do very well on motivation.
Thank you.
But you should get paid because there should be some type of counseling through the government that's doing something to help people's mental wellness. Excuse me. Where you should be able to get, something.
Let me be clear about something, Anita. I do get something. Don't go feeling sorry for me, sis.
I didn't say that.
Okay, all right. I do get something. I'm not being paid, but in terms of what you're talking about, but I believe that the reciprocal blessings that come back on my family and I energetically are well over and beyond what somebody could pay me. But I'm looking at the survey here, and a couple of things that I want to talk about when we come back is I'm looking at 56% of everyone that was there was in the middle of the career, so we're not close to retiring. So while 80% were over 45, most of us still have, 10, 15, 20 years of work left. And I think that's, still a significant runway, As a matter of fact, the majority of people there were between the age of 55 and 64. And if we look at that lower end, 55, like some of them still have 10 years before they go to retirement. That's more than enough time, especially with some of the opportunities coming, to set powerful goals to really set yourself up in the next decade. I believe that with every fiber of my being, especially with the opportunities that are coming. One of the things I talked about in terms of AI, and we could talk about it a little more in the second hour, depending on what questions come in. But I don't want to be dystopian when we talk about AI, because I believe that there are two sides of every coin, and I believe in the law of polarity. A lot of people are going to focus on the storm that it will create. And I talked about that at the Masterclass, that there is a storm coming, but every storm has an opportunity. And not every storm is seen as something dark for every person. It really depends on where you are. And for me, the idea of this storm coming is I want to be the person selling umbrellas. If you get my point, where everybody needs what I have. And so the fact that it's raining doesn't change anything for me. The fact that it's raining, the fact that it's storming actually is a benefit to me and my family. And I want it to be the same for you all too. You're going to have two people as this page turns on this era of technology, AI and robotics coming, or it's here. But as it really takes off, and it's taking off, but they're going to be two different kinds of people. And it's going to be the one being rained on, and it's going to be the one that's handing out umbrellas or selling umbrellas. Which will you be? Which will you be? And that's the truth of the matter.
They are universal principles. That's what I would think that every human being on this planet could see, because these principles are practiced all over this planet,
Mm-hmm.
And they're universal principles. They're not just this person or that person's principles or that group or whatever. One can see about sowing. You don't have to be a farmer to know that the seeds you put in the ground will reproduce, and they'll reproduce more than what you put in the ground.
That's right.
So people can see, about doing that as a young person, as an elder. Mm-hmm. And so these principles, I appreciate you helping us navigate the principles and understand them and how to get the best out of them. And everyone in the world has some kind of belief that they have a purpose of being here.
No doubt.
And fulfilling that purpose is the most exquisite joy and fulfillment of one's life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that principle, sowing and reaping, that a lot of people understand and know, and don't have to be a church person. But there's a scripture that says, you cannot outsow God given.
No, you can't.
Any good thing, good thing that anybody gives or does, the Creator will repay you.
That's right.
So we shall receive abundance back, and you are receiving your abundance back and expanding tremendously. And helping people to get to that purpose, that's tremendously abundant. I want to thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Mike. Thanks. Great phone call, and thanks for being there yesterday as well. Good question. He asked, I think it would serve some folks, but he was asking yesterday about, being a mature adult and feeling like he just got his arms around the internet. And same guy. I picked up the voice. Said, man, do you think that we can, how do I take on AI? I feel like I just got my arms around, if I have my arms around the internet, as a mature adult, how do we take on AI? And I would say the same way that you took on email, the same way, and then get help. Like, I'm sure there are young people who would be happy to show you how they use these different tools, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, you name them, how they use these different tools. I was showing my brother-in-law yesterday, what I did. I'll post this to my. By the way, I promised to post a few things to my Instagram stories yesterday. One of them I did, but we couldn't remember the last one. So if you remember the last one outside of the Elon Musk reel, let me know. But where I was going is I'll post. I created a picture using AI of a brother walking a lion. It's dope. And then yesterday I showed my brother-in-law, how to animate it. And so I animated it right in front of him, it was the picture at first, and then now the lion and they're walking together. And he was just like, what? Because, he's like, I thought I knew AI. It's like, yeah, man, there's so much that can be done when you know how to do it. And that's part of what I'll be teaching in to the Slayer Goals community. Again, make sure you're a part of the community for 2025. Because we're going to turn up the teaching big time. I'm excited about it. And the price is going up for 2025 as well because of the value. So this is your last shot to get in at $37 a month.
I think my three biggest takeaways, Brother Harris, was the reality check. When you shared the age demographic that was there, I didn't feel alone anymore. You said a few years ago on your show, you said if you have awakened late in life, you've got a short time to turn things around. And I didn't feel alone when you shared that age demographic. I think the second piece was...
And give me some context. Why do you say that? Like, why you say you didn't feel alone when I shared that age demographic? What do you mean?
Because it's like I'm not the only one in the room who's 50 plus who doesn't have it all together. You see what I'm saying? It's like you're with these people. You would think by some of the faces in there. And, again, my brother just talked about the U.S. educational system. The stories we tell ourselves are dangerous. And so whenever I see white people walking in, I'm like, man, you here too?
Yeah.
Somewhere in your upbringing, somebody missed something in your life? Because there was a couple of older white men there, bro. Like, I don't even know if you noticed.
Yeah.
No, you noticed. I know you noticed.
Yeah. I saw him.
Who am I talking to? I know you noticed. but it was still like seeing the amount of men my age there, or who seemed to be my age there. I was just like, wow, there's still time to turn things around. May take a little longer, may not take a little longer. It depends on how the goals are set up and the planning. But it was just like one of the things I said in my survey was like, just to build community and networking for people who are maybe not going through the same thing that I have, but want to accomplish their goals the same way that I do. And that's in excellence and the right way with the right attention on the right things.
Yeah. So what?
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're about to go there.
I was going to say point two, because I literally wrote down life coaching yesterday. It's been coming back to me back and forth, but I wrote it down. But I say that to say the patience you showed yesterday, I know when I check out. I check out when I hear too many stories. But the patience you showed yesterday, walking people through what they were dealing with, be it professional or personal, I was like, you have to have such a strong listening ear. And I noticed you always had a strong listening ear. So it just taught me, be patient and listen.
Yeah.
The third thing that moved me was my buddy who I hooked up with afterwards. He listened to you on his cell phone the entire time because he had to take his car to the shop and do some errands. He did all of these things walking in a 6-mile radius, listening to the show. And I didn't know that till we sat down together. But I really thought it was important for me to connect. Like, let me connect with you. I'm on the west side. You live on the west side. I'm coming to pick you up. Let's just go talk. And when we sat in Starbucks 2.5 hours, just brainstorming and talking about a lot of the things that you brought up. And so I thought that those were like some of the really key things. And I think my third point was, it's just like, Lionel Harris to me is like you're the bellwether. You are the leader. You are the trendsetter. Like everything that bellwether means, you encompass in all of that. And so listening to you, you don't give up on people.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't. So I'm talking to my wife this morning. She was like, so you going to start doing things for free? Is that what you're telling me? I said, no. She said, okay, don't forget God. And I was like, Lionel started his session off. Before we go any further, I want you all to know that I believe in God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I shared what you had going on with a lot of people. I saw one of the brothers from my church there. It was great to see him. But at the end of the day, I was ready to give up on my business. But it's something you said that I did that I didn't do. You talked about when you do proposals, you don't send them without a meeting.
Yeah.
And I sent a proposal without a meeting, and I sat on that thing 2 months and didn't hear back until I picked up the phone and said, hey, I need to have an understanding of where you want to move with this consulting contract. Can we meet?
Yeah.
The contract was signed within 10 days.
Look at that. Look at that. So you know that to be true.
I know it to be 100% true.
Yep. And let me tell you, Tony, the contract that I won to close out the year, large contract with a food retailer. And when they're a client, I'll tell you guys who it is, but you guys eat there often. Most people probably eat there often. And but I beat out a very, very big player using that principle, man. And you had me thinking, Tony, because in our community, a lot of us are entrepreneurs. And a lot of what I've been talking about is more life focused because that's important. It's really important, life focused. But you also have my mind kind of spinning, and something fitting that I've been talking about is, the need that we have as a community to also learn these business principles. And so, watch out for 2025 because I think there's an opportunity for us to entrepreneurs in our community to meet and be trained on what it means to be a business owner and from A to Z, what that looks like. Because if you recall, I think you were still there when I had my accountant come up to answer the question around AI and taxes, et cetera. But do you have a team in place? How are you moving? And then even then, some of the fundamentals of selling as an entrepreneur. And then also not just selling, but how do you close? How do you close out contracts? And so thanks for sharing that because I think in my mind, sometimes I'm like, oh, this would be a good idea. You're making it full circle for me where it's like, oh, this is not only a good idea, but if in what you're sharing is something that you actually went through. I wish I had known you were going through that so I could have told you 4 or 5 months before.
Yeah. Swallowing ego is a big part of the year going in. And, I'll be speaking in Texas this year at a conference that I'll be leading called my session is The Game is Free, The Cost is You. So when you said ask whatever AI you've been using, how you've been using it, I was rated 5 at the highest level by ChatGPT. And there was a young lady sitting next to me. I shared it with her. But then I said, how can I leverage you better going into the new year? And because of my activity, it already knew that, hey, this guy's in tech. This guy has a podcast. This guy's a minister. So it gave me, just off me asking, what can I do to leverage you better? It gave me 3 distinct bullet points on how to leverage it better going into the new year based on work, based on passion, based on spirituality.
I love that. And I'm going to be talking more, Tony, about a lot of these things in that quarterly meetup. But you and I got to get together anyway because I need you to help me with my network at home. So we're going to be.
One last piece real quick, and that was something I learned at an AI conference that I attended a couple of months ago. It said that AI will not replace you.
No.
People who know how to leverage and use AI will replace you. So the story you shared about Sarah, is this going to replace me? No, you're going to manage it and tell it what to do.
That's right.
I love that because that shows your commitment to people, your commitment to education, and your flexibility to know when the times and the current is moving to move with the stream and not against it.
That's right.
That's all I got, bro.
Wonderful. I want to speak to patience and listening. My father used to push my brother and I, and I'm thinking right about the time when I was around Legend's age, might be a little older than Legend, where he started forcing us to read Proverbs, because Legend can read now. So I'm like, my mind's kind of like, oh yeah, like I think him and I are gonna be going through Proverbs. But when you read the book of Proverbs, the word understanding, listen and understand, are two of the most prevalent words in the book of wisdom. Listen and understand. It's all through the book of Proverbs. Listen, understand. Listen, understand. And in my study of the book, one of the things that, because it's still one of my favorite books, and I read it whenever I can. One of the things I began to learn is that if you fully listen to a person and understand, like sometimes there was one particular person who came up to the mic, and I think she got a little frustrated with me because I was trying to get her to look in a space that she was unwilling to look. And it was a question around competing. Well, my answer was we've been programmed to think of things as competing priorities. And I was asking her to give herself the space to integrate. And I could see she ran into a wall right there. She was kind of like, I can't integrate it. And that was the point of me sharing what I shared, because the wall she ran into was her programming, not possibility. I hope you guys are getting this. And to share a bit more context, she was saying that she really wanted to be at the Discover and Live Your Life's Purpose workshop on January 25th. By the way, I'll put that in the chat here as well, so you can register. I only do it once a year. And if you don't know your purpose, by the way, overwhelmingly everyone who was at the Masterclass said that they struggle with, not everyone, but overwhelmingly the majority said that one of the major struggles they have is life's purpose. And so I did sell an opportunity for people to join me on January 25th for the Discover and Live Your Life's Purpose workshop. And you can go to the website and learn more about it. And I'll put that here. But she wanted to be at the workshop, but she had a prior commitment from 11 to 12. The workshop starts at 11. She would miss the first hour. And when you're making an investment like that, I get it. It's like, I don't want to miss the first hour on something that I'm investing this kind of money in. And so what I was telling her is, look for ways to integrate, because we've been programmed to recognize a competing priority. Here are two important things to me, and I have to pick one. And that's part of the programming. Like K through 12, they're like, you only can, which one do you do? Like, which one do you prioritize? Even in corporate America, like, it's competing priorities. And that's one of the things that, you will hear in executive meetings, like, we got these competing priorities. And even at the leadership level, and I believe this is one of the reasons why I've been given favor with certain CEOs, because even at the senior leadership level, like, there's a willingness to capitulate to this idea of competing priorities. And what I was sharing with her was that competing priority is a box of thinking. It's a context for thinking. And in the box of competing priorities, something loses. And in this case, she was going to lose because there was something she wanted to do that she wasn't going to be able to do because she was living in the box of competing priorities. I hope you guys get this. She was living in this box. And so what I was asking her to do was to leave the box and look at the possibilities. Right? But by the way, requesting that a person leave the box is difficult because the box has to have a door. And typically coaching is that door. Like, what we do as coaches is we actually break down the brick walls of the box and say, come on, come this way, right? And it's through like that conversation, really, if it were a coaching conversation, could take a whole hour for her to really grasp it. And, you know, it was a Q&A. We didn't have that kind of time. But ultimately, what I'm trying to train you all on in your thinking is that competing priorities are a context. And I see context as a box that I have to escape. And so the only way for me to escape the box is I have to understand more about me, my superpowers. And when I'm creating at a high capacity, how do I create? And choose to look at whatever it is I'm looking at from that place. So let me give you a personal example. My essence is peace, connection, enchantment, sovereignty, and love. And so whenever I feel like I'm stuck in a box, I always look at it from these places. Okay, what can I create from a place of connection? And I'll give you a perfect example of how I've handled competing priorities. There was a training I wanted to be a part of, and at the same time, I had a very important meeting with a group of leaders. And so I'm thinking about this, how do I do both? And I was like, man, I can send Sue to the training, have Sue take phenomenal notes for me, record as much as she can, and then give me a teach back, which means that I have access to the training, even though, you know, if I were in the world of competing priorities, I don't. I have access to the training, and then I can show up powerfully for these leaders fully present. That's integration. Now, in my case, I have that level of support where I can drive integration, but that's come from running up against these walls before, right? But that's integration. And let me be clear that there are leaders who have support who would still see that as a competing priority because they're stuck in the box. So then they just wouldn't do something. And then when they could have deployed support or delegation in a particular area, they don't because of that way of thinking. And so this is where I do believe we have to get really thoughtful about how we've been programmed and understand that a lot of times the walls that we run up against is our programming, not the possibilities. It's not the possibilities. Most of us have been programmed to live paycheck to paycheck, which is why we do. That's the programming. Okay, but the possibilities, financial possibilities, are endless. Are you willing to leave that box? It's no different than what that young lady was up against in terms of being able to show up at the Discover and Live Your Life's Purpose workshop. It's no different. It's very much the same. Like, how will I create new possibilities that I don't have to know how to create? I have to be open to the idea that there is another possibility. And then one of the things I opened up the Masterclass with yesterday is one of my life hacks, which is, like, if I'm sitting with a question like that, okay, I want to be present at this workshop and I have a prior engagement. I will write that down before I go to sleep, or I will put it in my phone and I will be thinking about that when I go to bed. And I will allow my subconscious mind to solve it for me. I'm not going to put my conscious mind towards that because it's going to run up against the programming. But my subconscious mind, while I'm sleeping, can sort through all of the possibilities that I've given it in the past. You wake up and you be like, oh, you know what I can do? I can do. Like, and that's, I don't think we're fully utilizing sometimes the fullness of what we've been given. I mean, we are phenomenal. I mean, how God created us, and what I'm asking us to do is just to tap into some of it. Tap into some of it. And so I think that's a phenomenal example of where we get stuck sometimes. As I reflected on yesterday, one of the things that I thought, I was like, I didn't properly share the Discover and Live Your Life Purpose opportunity. I was, I'm looking at the clock, and it's funny, man, when you're doing something live, and there's, a lot of different energy in the space, and then you have an intention. Like, your mind is running. And I felt it happening to me when my mind was running. I'm like, okay, there's a place I want to be, and there's a certain amount I want to teach. And because it's not about getting the sales, I didn't do what I intended to do in properly positioning Discovering Live Your Life Purpose, that workshop, which is okay because I'm not going to do it perfectly, right? Today I choose progress. Today I choose progress. And so today, to end the show, part of what I want to do is I want to make sure that anybody who is in the audience and anyone listening now, because you'll still have the opportunity to take advantage of this offer, anyone that's listening now, that you fully understand what I'll be sharing at the Masterclass. Not the Masterclass, I'm sorry. What I'll be sharing at the Discovering and Live Your Life's Purpose workshop, because I only do it once a year. Art talked about, hey man, you got children, why are you doing this? And the reason I only do this workshop once a year is because I want to be present. And I used to teach it on weekends, like once a quarter. And, when you have children, there are things that I still haven't done with my children over the weekends that I want to do. So I can't just teach this course like that, because I also know and very clear that my first obligation is to my family, to my children. And so what I want to do is kind of walk you all through why this is important. And I started with the number one secret. And I talked about this notion of decoding the secret through this framework of be, do, have. I think this is really important because when you think about who you be is connected to your current identity, which correlates to your current vibration and frequency. And I want to be very clear about this. And so it correlates to your current vibration and frequency. And so who you be as it stands now is what has created what you currently have. And if you're not satisfied with what you currently have, then what that means is that there needs to be a transformation in who you be so you can transform what you have. Now, I'm skipping over the do part because the be is your current identity and the doing is connected to your current activity. All of us are in some level of activity. I haven't met a human being yet who's my age and not homeless who isn't up to something. Now, the homeless guy, what you doing? Well, you see what I'm doing. I'm right here. It's like nothing, right? And by the way, he's being or conducting himself at a low vibrational frequency, which means he's doing very little. And then as a result, he has very little, right? It's a direct correlation. But most of us, when you look at our doing, there's lots of activity. But the problem with this activity is that activity is connected to our current way of being. And so if my current way of being and my current identity don't reflect where I want to go, then I will remain in lots of activity that solidifies me in my current way of being. Is this making sense? And so the idea is to work on me first, who I be, which is part of my identity, which is what this course is about. This course, in many ways, is the opportunity I take with the individuals who join to begin supporting them in an evolution of who they be, like helping them evolve who they be, because as they evolve who they be, that will naturally change their activity, what they do. Hopefully this is making sense. It will transform what they do, because your you're doing is connected to your activity, which is the outcome of everything that you either consume or produce. Now, this is important. I'm going to say it again. What you do is connected to your activity, which is the outcome of everything that you consume, inputs, right? And or produce. So your inputs are part of what you produce. So let me put this in another context. If you're a business owner and you're looking at your business results and you don't like your business results are the product of what you've been doing. And a lot of times what happens is we'll say, I need to do more. But then we end up with the same business results. And that's where the fallacy is, because it's not about doing more. It's about transforming who you're being in business. If I transform who I be in business, then fundamentally that will transform what I do. It's going to transform my priorities in terms of what I do, which then begins to transform what I have, my revenue. So this course is what I would call a direct front on who you be. How do we evolve who you be? Because if we evolve who you be, then it will directly correlate to what you do in 2025 and then automatically correlate to what you have going into 2026. Anything that I have, it is because I am vibrating on that frequency. I'm going to say this, and this is not in a bragging way. I want you all to get this. Yesterday, coming home from the Masterclass, I washed my truck and I pulled it into the drive, and my neighbor was pulling in. He drives a Land Rover too. And he was like, boy, you got it clean. I was like, yeah. He said, you want to take mine over? I said, no, sir. No, sir. And then one of my other neighbors drove by, and he was in a Land Rover too. And I said, isn't that interesting? Like, it hadn't occurred to me that you had these many Land Rovers in my neighborhood. But I'm like, but there's a reason for that. It's in order to live in that house, there's a particular frequency you have to have. That frequency extends itself to the vehicle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's why in certain neighborhoods you see certain cars. Now, let me be clear, too. There are a lot of Priuses in my neighborhood, too. Because for them, it's not about what they drive, right? Like, they want that money to go somewhere else. And they confidently, and my neighbor right across the street, Honda Accord, confidently will move in and out of, like whatever, right? That doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is the equity. What matters to them is the amount of money they're saving. What matters, but it's a matter of frequency, because I would almost guarantee you that the neighbor across the street, if he wanted to, could go to the dealership and get the same kind of vehicles that we all drive, because his frequency is there, right? And so I talked about sitting in VIP when I go to conferences. I sit in those areas because I want to be around people with similar frequencies, similar vibrations, who are being the type of person I intend to be, so I can continue to create in terms of activity the way I'm creating that will produce what I want to produce and have in alignment with my goals. Okay. All that being said, the course will take place January 25th. This is one of those investments. If you've been spinning your wheels when it comes to activity, if you've been spinning your wheels in terms of actually getting or achieving what it is you intend to have, that you cannot pass up. And I want you to keep in mind, for those of you who attended the workshop, that sometimes in order to make this type of investment, the course is $397. something has to shift just to pay the money. And it's that shift that changes the frequency. Like now you're being something different because you have to believe, like, and I set the price on purpose because you have to believe that it's going to do something different for you to pay. And if you don't believe it, because part of what's necessary for a course like this is belief, self-belief. So if you don't have the belief that you can turn that 400 into 40,000, 400,000, you get where I'm going? If you don't believe that, then you won't pay it. But if you do, that becomes the beginning. That becomes the beginning of something different for you because you have to be something different. I'm gonna tell this story to close. I shared an example of a client of mine that called and was only making $30,000 a year. And when she looked at my rates and all that, it was going to basically, for her to work with me for a year was going to be more than half of her revenue. And I asked her, I said, well, I'm not in the business of taking people's money. And so I want to be very clear about these are my prices, et cetera. And, what you're looking to do where, this is what it's going to cost you. And so how do you feel going into that? And she said, I can't afford not to. I can't afford not to. And then that year tripled her income. What happened when she hired me was there was a frequency shift. She changed who she was being. So she became the person that she needed to be to generate 90,000 in that moment. And then we did the work around her activity. You follow? That supported her in having the revenue that she wanted in her business. And so be thoughtful about where you begin to draw money objections. Because Christmas just passed. And I know folks spent in ways that it won't be coming back to you, nor did it change your vibration or your being. This is your opportunity to invest in yourself and truly, truly make a difference that you can experience not just in 2025, but in years to come. All right, you all. I love you. Happy New Year. The next time I'll be speaking to you, it will be 2025. How about that? God bless you. If you're interested in any of these things, you can go to my website, LynnellHarris.com, to learn more. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WVON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Lynnell Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.